I never imagined my life would end up like this cold pavement beneath my palms, rain soaking through my clothes, and my own father's voice echoing in my ears like a sentence. My house is not a shelter for the weak. Get out, Emily. My name is Emily Carter, and last night, my dad kicked me out of his mansion while I sat in a wheelchair, begging, literally begging for a place to stay. I had nowhere to go. No job left, no partner, no strength. Just a broken body, and a heart even more shattered. I spent the night outside, shaking, humiliated, wondering how a parent could look at their child suffering and feel nothing. But this morning, something changed. While searching through my old things, I found my grandpa's metal card, the one he told me to use only when you have nothing left. When the bank manager saw the balance, he froze. "Ma'am, you need to see this. I used to think I understood pain. Heartbreaks, bad days, disappointments, the usual things people call struggles. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the night my entire world fell apart. 2 months before my father threw me out, I had a life that felt solid. I worked as a project coordinator in a mid-sized tech firm in Dallas. I rented a cozy apartment with light blue curtains and plants on every window. I jogged on weekends. I made decent money. I wasn't rich, but I was proud of myself. And then one stupid moment changed everything. I had stayed late at work, finishing a quarterly report. The parking lot was nearly empty when I left. The Texas heat had been brutal that week, and I'd skipped lunch. While driving home, the world suddenly tilted, just a rapid wave of dizziness, like someone dimmed the lights around me. "Come on, Emily." "Not now," I whispered, gripping the wheel. The next thing I remember is the sound: screeching metal, shattering glass, and my own voice screaming. When I woke up, it was to blinding hospital lights and a doctor saying words that cracked me open. "You've suffered a spinal injury. Movement from the waist down will take time, and there's no guarantee of full recovery." I stared at him, numb. No, this can't be happening," I whispered. But it was. And everything that came after felt like the universe kicking me while I was already bleeding. My boyfriend of 2 years showed up the next morning, not with flowers, not with comfort, but with guilt, written all over his face. He stood far from the bed, arms crossed. "Emily, I'm sorry. I didn't sign up for this kind of situation." "Situation?" My voice trembled. "I can't walk. I need help." He looked away, ashamed but not enough to stay. "I can't be someone's caretaker. I'm not built for that." And just like that, he left. My job wasn't kinder. 2 weeks later, my boss called. "We're restructuring. And given your condition, remote work won't be feasible. We're terminating your contract effective immediately." My hands shook around the phone. "So that's it? I lose everything?" "I'm sorry, Emily. It's business. Business." It felt like the world had decided I was useless, too slow, too broken, too inconvenient. With medical bills climbing and no income, I couldn't pay rent anymore. I had to leave my apartment with whatever I could pack into 2 small boxes. I stayed a few nights at a cheap motel until even that became impossible. Every road led to one person, the man who should have loved me first. My father, Richard Carter. I told myself he wouldn't turn me away. He was strict, distant, obsessed with reputation, but he was still my dad. I was wrong. That night, when I rolled my wheelchair up to his mansion, holding on to hope like it was the last scrap of oxygen, he looked at me with disgust. "What do you want now, Emily?" I just need somewhere to stay for a while." My voice cracked. "Dad, please." He didn't waver, not even for a second. "Then you came to the wrong place." And with that, he turned his back, and the last piece of my old life snapped in half. The night air outside my father's mansion felt colder than anything I'd ever known. The driveway was long, lined with perfect rows of oak trees and lights that made the whole place glow like a museum. I used to think it was beautiful. Now it felt like a place meant to keep people like me out. I pressed the doorbell. A dull chime echoed inside. Moments later, the front door opened, not to my father, but to Thomas, the house manager. His eyes widened slightly when he saw the wheelchair. "Miss Carter, I wasn't informed you'd be visiting." I swallowed hard. I need to speak to my dad." Thomas hesitated. "He's in a meeting. It's 9 p.m. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Behind Thomas, my father's voice cut through the hallway like a blade. "Who is it?" Thomas stepped aside, and Dad appeared, tall, sharp clothes, Perfect hair, like always. He stared at me the way people stare at something spilled on the floor. Emily? His tone wasn't surprise. It was annoyance. My throat tightened. Dad, can we talk? A long silence. He looked over his shoulder, as if embarrassed someone might see us. Make it quick. I need a place to stay, I whispered. Just for a few weeks. I lost my job. My apartment. I'm trying to get better, but I can't do this alone. Dad didn't move, didn't blink. So this is about money again? He said. About you needing help? The words stabbed me. No, I'm not asking for money. I need a roof, a bed, somewhere safe. He stepped closer, close enough that I could see the irritation on his face. You know what your problem is, Emily? You think the world owes you something because you're in that chair. The heat behind my eyes burned. That's not true. I'm trying. He cut me off with a hand. I run a real business. I host high-level clients here. What do you expect me to say? Ignore my daughter, she can't walk, but she needed a place to crash? Dad, please. My voice broke. I'm your daughter, a daughter who refuses to take responsibility. His jaw tightened. You caused your own situation. You should have taken better care of yourself. My breath caught. It was an accident. I didn't ask for this. And I didn't ask for you to show up here, he snapped. I flinched. But Dad, I have nowhere else. I can't even climb stairs. Please, just until I get back on my feet. I'll stay in the guest room. You won't even notice. He laughed. Actually laughed. Emily, you being here is the opposite of not noticing. You'd turn this house into a rehabilitation center. And he was to do it. He leaned in, eyes cold and sharp. This is a mansion, not a hospital. I felt something in my chest crumble. Get out, he said quietly. Before my guests arrive and see you like this. My hands gripped the wheels so tight they trembled. Dad, don't do this to me. He didn't answer. He just turned his back. Thomas opened the door wider, an unspoken command for me to leave. I rolled backward, my vision blurring, breath shaking. As the door began to close, I whispered, I'm still your daughter. But Dad didn't turn around. The last thing I saw was the polished wood door shutting in my face, sealing me outside like I was trash left on the porch. And then, click, the lock engaged. I sat there in the cold darkness, staring at the place I once called home, wondering how a parent could choose pride over their own child's tears. But that night, while the wind sliced through my thin jacket, I promised myself one thing. If I ever stood back up again, I would never, ever come back to that door begging. After my father slammed the door in my face, I didn't cry right away. I just sat there in my wheelchair, staring at the fancy carved wood like it was some kind of cruel joke. It took a full minute before the cold actually hit me, seeping through my jacket, my jeans, down to my bones. Only then did my hands start to shake. Eventually, Thomas came out, awkward, avoiding my eyes. Miss Carter, it's best if you leave now. I nodded, even though it felt like something inside me was breaking apart. I rolled myself down the driveway, each push harder than the last, until I reached the quiet street below the mansion. There, under a flickering street lamp, I finally let the tears fall. Why, Dad? Why couldn't you just let me stay? The question hung in the air with no answer. I used the last bit of money I had to get a rideshare back to the crumbling motel on the edge of town. The room smelled like mildew and old carpet, but at least it was warm. At least it wasn't the sidewalk. I collapsed onto the bed and stared at the ceiling, feeling the weight of everything pressing on my chest. The accident, the breakup, losing my job, losing my home, losing the last shred of love from the man who raised me. It was like life had ripped every support beam out from under me. Around 3 a.m., unable to sleep, I pulled one of the cardboard boxes closer, the last box I managed to save from my old apartment. It was filled with random things. Old notebooks, a cracked mug, some photos, charger cables, birthday cards from years ago. My hands rummaged through the pile until something metallic slid under my fingers. I froze. A small, heavy object. Cold. Solid. I lifted it out slowly. A metal card, silver, smooth. A faint engraving of a crest I hadn't seen in years. My grandpa's crest. My breath caught. Grandpa. I hadn't thought about him in so long, not because I wanted to forget, but because remembering him hurt. He was the only family member who ever treated me like I mattered. The only one who ever looked at me with warmth instead of expectation. I stared at the card, running my thumb along the edge. It was exactly as I remembered it. A gift he gave me on my 18th birthday. Back then, it didn't look like much, just an old keepsake from a man who collected strange, vintage things. But I remembered his words. His voice still echoed in my memory, warm and steady. "Emmy, sweetheart, if life ever breaks you, truly breaks you, use this card. It'll help you stand again." I'd laughed at the time. "Grandpa, what is it? Some kind of treasure map?" He winked. "Something like that. I never used it. Never even looked into it. Because at that time, I didn't need saving. But sitting in that motel room now broke, exhausted, abandoned, his words suddenly felt like a lifeline thrown across time. I flipped the card over. A small bank emblem glimmered faintly in the lamplight. First National Asset Bank. Legacy Access. Authorized holder, Emily H. Carter. My heart started beating faster. What is this really? My hands trembled as I pressed the card to my chest. Grandpa had been wealthy, everyone knew that. But my father inherited everything after he died. Or, at least I thought he did. A tiny spark so small I barely dared to trust it lit inside me. Hope. Confused, fragile hope. I wiped my tears with the back of my sleeve. "Okay, Grandpa," I whispered. I don't know what you planned, or what this is, but it's all I have left." I clutched the card tightly. "Tomorrow, I'm going to the bank, and for the first time in months, just a tiny bit, I didn't feel completely alone." Morning light crept through the dirty motel curtains, turning the room a pale, sickly yellow. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my father's face, the door closing, the lock clicking. But the card, my grandpa's metal card, rested on the pillow beside me like a silent promise. By 9 a.m., I forced myself out of bed, changed clothes as best as I could, and called a rideshare to take me downtown to First National Asset Bank. I held the card tight in my palm the entire ride. "What if it's nothing?" I whispered to myself. "What if I'm being stupid? What if it's just a souvenir?" Still, I couldn't stop my hands from shaking. When the car pulled up, the sight of the bank almost swallowed me whole. A towering building of glass and steel, spotless, intimidating, the kind of place people with real money walked into. I wasn't one of those people. Not anymore. But I pushed the wheelchair forward, each roll echoing on the marble floor as I entered the lobby. The space inside was huge, cold air, high ceilings, the faint smell of expensive cologne and printer ink. A young teller smiled politely from behind the counter. "Good morning. How can I help you?" I placed the metal card onto the counter. "I need to check whatever is linked to this." She picked it up casually, then froze. A tiny frown creased her forehead as she turned it over, then over again, as if trying to confirm it was real. "Oh," she whispered, then louder. "Oh, just one moment, ma'am." Before I could ask anything, she stood up so fast her chair rolled backward. She rushed toward the side door leading to the offices. I stared after her, heart hammering. Is that normal?" I asked the guard nearby. He didn't answer. He just straightened his posture slightly, eyes flicking to the card on the counter. Something wasn't normal. A minute later, a tall man in a dark tailored suit came out from the back, a manager, maybe older than 50. Glasses, silver hair, the kind of man who looked like he dealt with rich people every day. "Miss Carter?" he asked, looking directly at me. "Yes, I'm Daniel Brooks, senior branch manager. Please come with me." My stomach dropped. "Is something wrong?" He didn't reply. He simply picked up the card with both hands carefully, respectfully, as if it were a bomb or a priceless artifact. He led me into a private room with glass walls and a long oak table. Not the kind of room they used for everyday customers. When the door closed behind us, Manager Brooks sat down across from me. "Miss Carter?" he said slowly. "I need to verify your identity before I can discuss anything further." "Of course." He scanned the card, then scanned my ID, then had me place my thumb on a biometric pad. The machine beeped, and the screen turned green. A soft chime sounded like a vault opening somewhere. The manager inhaled sharply. "Identity confirmed. You are the sole legal beneficiary of this trust." His tone had changed lower, heavier, almost reverent. My chest tightened. "Trust? What trust?" He turned the monitor toward me. Numbers filled the screen, rows and rows of them. Commas, zeros, Columns I didn't understand. At the very bottom, in bold, total assets, 1,903,477,562.11. My breath vanished. My vision blurred. It felt like the entire room tilted sideways. This is a mistake. My voice cracked. This can't be real. But the manager's expression was deadly serious. Miss Carter, he said quietly. These holdings were placed under a high-security legacy trust by your grandfather, Henry Carter. He paused. I've never seen a trust remain this untouched. And I've never ever seen one belonging to someone who had no idea it existed. Caesarville friends. I stared at the screen, hands trembling uncontrollably. Almost $2 billion? I whispered. My voice sounded small, distant. The manager leaned forward, sliding a folder toward me. Ma'am, that's only the liquid value. There are physical assets, bonds, properties, offshore accounts. You'll need a legal team to go through everything. I covered my mouth as tears spilled down my cheeks. Grandpa didn't forget me. He didn't leave me behind like Dad did. He saved something for me, something impossible. Manager Brooks lowered his voice. There is one more thing you need to see. He slid a sealed envelope across the table, my name written on it in my grandfather's handwriting. My heartbeat drowned out everything. If this was real, then my life had just changed forever. I left the bank that day feeling like I'd stepped into a different universe, one where the ground I'd been crawling on suddenly cracked open to reveal a staircase. A staircase built by the only man who'd ever truly loved me. But money, no matter how much, doesn't fix a broken body. It doesn't erase the pain of being abandoned by your own father. It doesn't magically heal your spine or clear your mind of the nightmares you've lived through. Still, it gave me a chance. And I wasn't going to waste that. Emily, I need to be honest with you. The next morning, I checked out of the motel, called a private medical service, and booked a full evaluation. A woman in blue scrubs helped me transfer into the exam chair. She scanned my chart and sighed softly. Your injury is recoverable, she said, but only with aggressive rehabilitation. The kind that takes months, maybe years. Years? My voice cracked. Yes. But I've seen patients walk again after worse. I swallowed hard. What if I don't have years? She looked me straight in the eyes. Then you fight anyway. And something inside me whispered, then I will. The house that hope built. Within a week, I purchased a small single-story home just outside Dallas warm colors. Open layout, no stairs. Not a mansion. Not even close. But it was mine. Mine to heal in. Mine to rebuild in. I filled the living room with rehab equipment. Parallel bars, resistance machines, a stationary bike, a soft floor mat, and an adjustable therapy bed. Standing in the middle of it all, I whispered, Grandpa, I hope you're watching. Enter Megan, the person who became my strength. On my second week of rehab, I met Megan Hayes, the physical therapist assigned through the private program. She walked in with a clipboard, auburn hair pulled into a messy bun, wearing a navy polo and an energy that filled the whole room. You're Emily, she smiled, shaking my hand. And I'm the woman who's going to torture you for the next several months. I stared at her in horror. She laughed. I'm kidding. Mostly. But she wasn't kidding. Pain that feels like punishment. Rehab began with Megan gripping my arms while I tried to lift myself upright using the parallel bars. Core tight, shoulders back, lift. I can't. Yes, you can. Again. Every muscle burned. My arms shook violently. Sweat blurred my vision. I slipped. Stop, it hurts, I gasped. Megan didn't flinch. She crouched to eye level. Emily, pain means your nerves are responding. That's good. Now breathe. I'm so tired. Tears stung my eyes. I know. But if you want your life back, we do it again. So we did. Every day. Again and again. I became my own enemy. Some days I hated Megan. Some days I hated myself. One night, I collapsed on the therapy bed, sobbing into my hands. It's pointless, I whispered. My dad was right. I'm a burden. I'll never walk again. Megan's voice softened. Emily, look at me. I lifted my eyes. You're not doing this to prove your father wrong. You're doing this to prove you matter. To you. The words cracked something open inside me. The first spark. At week 7, something happened. We were practicing weight shifting. I was gripping the walker, drenched in sweat, trying to lift my right foot an inch off the ground. "Come on, Emily," Megan urged. "Just a little more." I bit down on my lip until I tasted blood, and then my toes curled. Just a tiny movement, barely visible, but it was mine. "Oh my God," I gasped. Megan, look." Megan's eyes widened, and she let out a laugh so loud it echoed through the house. "Yes, that's you! That's your nerves firing." I covered my face with both hands and sobbed. Not from pain. From hope. Real, actual hope. Rebuilding a life. Not just a body. With progress came clarity. I hired a personal nutritionist, a mental health therapist, a small home staff to help me handle day-to-day tasks. Not because I wanted luxury, but because I wanted to live, not just survive. And slowly, the pieces of my life came together. I slept without nightmares. I ate real meals again. I went days without crying. I even laughed. Once, maybe twice. And whenever I doubted myself, I'd take out my grandfather's envelope, the one the bank manager gave me, and run my fingers over his handwriting. I still hadn't opened it. Not yet. Somehow, I felt like I needed to earn the right to see what he left inside, to stand literally and figuratively before I opened the last gift he prepared for me. And with every drop of sweat, every tear, every shaky step forward, I felt myself getting closer. Closer to standing. Closer to becoming someone my grandfather would be proud of. Closer to becoming someone I would be proud of. Recovery changes you. Not just your body, your mind, your pride, your idea of who you are. By the third month, with Megan's relentless training and my own stubborn refusal to quit, I could stand for 5 whole seconds while gripping the bars. 5 seconds. It wasn't much, but to someone who'd been told she might never walk again, it felt like conquering Everest. And with every second I stood, something inside me rebuilt itself. I felt myself shifting from, "Why did this happen to me?" to, "What can I build from this?" The spark of an idea. One morning, while Megan was stretching my legs on the therapy bed, she asked casually, "Emily, before the accident, what did you do for work?" "I coordinated software projects," I said. "Sometimes consulting. I wasn't a big deal, but I was good at it." "Do you want to do that again?" The question stunned me. Before, I worked because I had to survive. Now, I could choose who I wanted to become. I swallowed hard. "Yeah, I think I do." Megan grinned. "Then do it. Build something. You've already survived, hell, business should be easy." I laughed. Actually laughed. It felt strange but good. Later that night, alone in my home office, I stared at my dark laptop screen. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. "What if I fail?" I whispered. But another voice echoed beneath it, my grandfather's. "If life breaks you, Emmy, you stand again." So I opened a new document and typed the words, "Carter Innovate Project Consulting and Software Solutions." A company. My company. I wasn't just going to rebuild my life. I was going to build an empire. Starting from zero. Again, I used only a tiny fraction of my inheritance, less than 0.1%, to rent a small downtown office, 3 secondhand desks, 6 refurbished computers, 1 squeaky whiteboard, and 1 coffee machine that worked only if you threatened it. I hired 3 young engineers, bright, hungry, underestimated by everyone else. When they learned I'd been in a wheelchair for months, their eyes softened. One of them, Alex, asked, "Ma'am, are you sure you can handle the workload?" I smiled. "You'll be surprised what I can handle." The first contract. The first client was a small logistics startup needing a tracking app. Nothing glamorous, but it was a chance. During the pitch meeting, halfway through explaining the workflow plan, my right leg suddenly cramped, hard. I gripped the table, voice tightening. The clients looked concerned. "Are you okay, Miss Carter?" I forced a smile. "Yes, and I guarantee we'll deliver ahead of schedule." They hesitated, then nodded. When they signed the deal, I nearly cried, not because of the money, but because someone finally believed in me again. Work became my therapy. Days blurred into nights as we built the app. I worked from my customized ergonomic chair, legs propped up, laptop open for hours. My team often found me asleep at my desk. Megan shook her head every time she visited. "You need balance," she warned. I pointed at my computer. "This is balance. I feel alive here." And she didn't argue. Each finished module felt like regaining a step. Each successful test felt like taking a breath after being underwater. When we delivered the final product, the client was stunned. "This is incredible," he said. "Better than companies 10 times your size." Then he asked the question that changed everything. "Can we refer you to our partners?" I almost whispered the answer. "Yes, please." The rise, referrals poured in. A retail brand needed inventory software. A medical clinic needed a scheduling system. A local entrepreneur wanted a custom platform for her business. Suddenly, I wasn't chasing clients. They were chasing me. Within 6 months, my company grew from 3 employees, 10, 1 client, 27 active contracts, tiny rented office, full-floor workspace. One afternoon, as sunlight filtered through the new glass windows of our upgraded office, I stood with my hands resting on my walker and looked out across the room. My team was laughing, typing, brainstorming around whiteboards full of ideas. For the first time since the accident, I felt proud of myself. Truly proud. I whispered, "Grandpa, I'm doing it. I'm really doing it." And then the media found me. It happened overnight. A journalist reached out, wanting to feature the CEO who rebuilt her life from a wheelchair. I agreed to a short interview, thinking it would be a small article. But the story exploded. Headlines everywhere. From tragedy to tech leader, Emily Carter's rise from rock bottom. She lost everything. Now she's leading one of Dallas's fastest-growing startups. Carter Innovate, the company born from courage. Comments flooded in. "She's inspiring. A warrior. A real survivor." I read them all with shaking hands. Because for once, the world didn't see me as broken. They saw me as someone who stood back up. But the higher you rise, the more your past notices. The article caught attention I wasn't prepared for. Not from investors. Not from clients. But from the one person I never wanted to hear from again. My father. And the day he came back into my life would become the moment everything finally exploded. My company was thriving. New contracts came in every week. The office buzzed with life whiteboards full of ideas, keyboards clicking nonstop, employees laughing as they solved problems. I was standing with my walker near the project room, reviewing a design draft, when my assistant Olivia rushed in. Her face had drained of all color. "Emily," she whispered, "there's someone here to see you." I didn't think much of it. Investors showed up sometimes without appointments. "Who is it?" Olivia swallowed hard. "It's your father." My entire body went cold. No, it couldn't be. Not him. Not after everything. "Where is he?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Olivia pointed toward the lobby. "He's demanding to see you." Demanding. Of course he was. I steadied myself on my walker, inhaled deeply, and rolled toward the entrance. The moment I turned the corner, the world seemed to stop. There he was, Richard Carter, standing in the middle of my polished lobby in a wrinkled suit, hair unkempt, eyes haunted. He looked nothing like the powerful man who'd slammed a door in my face. "Emily?" he breathed out, like my name was his last lifeline. I froze. He took a step toward me. "It's really you," he said softly. His voice, once cold, sharp, dismissive, now trembled. I stayed still, hands gripping the walker. "What are you doing here?" I asked. He opened his mouth, then closed it, struggling for words. His throat bobbed. I need your help." There it was. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "How are you?" Not, "I was wrong." Help. That was all he ever wanted. I forced my voice to stay even. "What kind of help?" He exhaled shakily. "My company, it's failing." He ran a hand through his hair. Investors pulled out. A lawsuit hit us. Then the bank froze our credit lines. "I'm drowning, Emily. I'm losing everything." I stared at him, unblinking. "And that concerns me because..." His eyes reddened. "Because I'm your father." I almost laughed. Instead, I whispered, "You stopped being my father the night you locked that door." He flinched. The pain in his eyes was unmistakable. "Emily, please," he rasped. "I know I made mistakes. I know I hurt you. But I'm desperate." His voice cracked. "I might lose my home, my reputation, everything I've built, everything you built," I murmured. "Yes, I remember that, vividly." He took another step toward me. "I have nowhere else to go, no one else to ask." His voice dropped to a plea. Just give me a loan. Anything, a few million, I'll pay you back." "A few million?" He said it like pocket change. I clenched the walker. Dad, do you know where I was when you threw me out? He didn't answer. So I continued, my voice shaking with anger I had held in for months. I sat outside your mansion in the cold, in a wheelchair, crying, begging, and you turned your back like I was trash. His jaw tightened, shame flickering across his face. I was under stress, he mumbled. Oh, really? My voice rose. Is that your excuse? Because I was under cars, under hospital machines, under bills, under depression so deep I could barely breathe. Emily. No. I cut him off. You didn't just refuse to help me. You humiliated me. You looked me in the eyes and told me I was an embarrassment. He shut his eyes tightly. People in the office watched in silence. No one moved. No one breathed. He swallowed hard and whispered, Please, I'm begging you. Don't let me lose everything. I stared at him. Then something shocking happened. He dropped to his knees. Right there. On my office floor. Emily, please. His voice cracked into a sob. I'm your father. I'm begging you. My heart thundered in my chest. Not because he was begging, but because I felt nothing. No pity. No satisfaction. No revenge. Just emptiness. Slowly, I stepped back with my walker. You threw me out, I said softly, when I had nothing. As in a splendid age too, he lifted his head, eyes full of desperation. And now? He asked. Will you help me now? Silence swallowed the room. I straightened my shoulders. No, I said. He went pale. Emily, you taught me a lesson the night you left me outside in the cold. My voice didn't shake. Not anymore. Now I'm teaching you one. He stared up at me, breath trembling. People who abandon others in their darkest moment. I met his eyes. Do not deserve to be saved. Security stepped forward, but I lifted a hand. No, he can leave on his own. Dad stood slowly, wiping his face with a trembling hand. For the first time in his life, he looked small, broken. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, maybe sorry, maybe please, but no words came out. He turned, walked toward the glass doors, stopped only once, looking back at me. Goodbye, Emily. And then he was gone. The door shut behind him, and I finally felt free. Free from the weight of his expectations. Free from the pain he caused. Free to become who I was meant to be. My hands shook on the walker, not from weakness, but from the overwhelming relief of finally closing the chapter that had haunted me for years. Megan, who'd been watching from the hallway, rushed to me. Are you okay? I nodded. I'm not okay, I whispered. I'm better. When my father left my office that day, the glass doors closing behind him with a soft thud, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like release, like I'd been carrying a cinder block on my chest for years without realizing it. And suddenly, it was gone. For the first time in a long while, I could breathe normally. But recovery isn't a single moment. It's hundreds of tiny, painful ones stitched together. And now, for the first time, the stitching didn't hurt. A new routine, a new world. Weeks passed. Carter Innovate continued to grow more contracts, more employees, more interviews, but I didn't lose myself in work the way I used to. I woke up early every morning, opened the curtains of my new home, and let sunlight flood the room. I made coffee. I learned to cook again slowly, carefully, burning a few pans along the way. Megan visited every day for physical therapy, which, of course, she claimed was medical necessity. But I knew she stayed longer than she needed to. Our conversations drifted from therapy instructions to jokes to confessions spoken in low, tired voices. One evening, while helping me stretch, she laughed and said, You know, for someone who used to nearly faint at doing leg lifts, you're a monster now. I rolled my eyes. You're the monster. I'm the victim. Victim? You? Emily, you literally started a company while relearning how to stand. I smiled, a real, full smile, and in her eyes, I saw something soften, something warm, something dangerous, something beautiful, standing again. Literally. On a cool morning about 10 months after the accident, we were in the therapy room. Megan positioned the walker in front of me. Let's try again, she said. This wasn't new. We'd done this almost every day, but something was different today. My legs felt stronger. My core didn't shake as violently. I gripped the bars. Megan placed her hands on my hips, grounding me. Ready? She asked softly. I nodded. 1, 2, 3. I pushed. Pain shot up my lower back sharp, hot but manageable. Then my knees steadied. My muscles tightened. And then, I stood. Not with her holding me. Not leaning on the walker like dead weight. I stood. Straight. Tall. Alive. Emily, Megan whispered, hands flying to her mouth. You're doing it. I gasped, choking on a sob. No way. But I wasn't dreaming. I stayed standing. 10 seconds. 20. I laughed and cried at the same time, messy, trembling, overwhelmed. Megan wiped her tears quickly. Okay, don't fall now. But holy crap, Emily. You're standing on your own. I collapsed into her arms, both of us shaking. I told you, she whispered into my hair. You were never broken. The visit I needed to make. 2 weeks later, when I could take several steps with only a cane, I asked Megan to drive me somewhere. A quiet, simple cemetery on the north side of town. We walked slowly between the rows of headstones until we reached the one with the name, Henry Carter. My sunshine lives on. I knelt carefully before his grave, something I couldn't have done just weeks before. Hi, Grandpa, I whispered. I made it. The wind moved gently through the trees, rustling the leaves like a soft applause. I'm standing again, I said, wiping my cheeks. And I built something real, something good. For a moment, I let myself cry, not with grief, but with gratitude. Thank you, I whispered, for saving me long before you even knew I needed saving. Megan placed a hand on my shoulder. He'd be proud, she murmured. I nodded. I hope so. A new beginning, not a replacement. Life didn't magically become perfect after that. I still had pain. I still limped some days. I still carried trauma like a shadow. But shadows don't scare you when you've learned to walk through the dark. And then something unexpected happened. Something I didn't realize I'd been avoiding. One evening, Megan and I were sitting on my couch after therapy, sharing takeout and laughter. Her hair fell loose around her face. Her eyes were warm and full of something that mirrored what I felt inside. She looked at me quietly for a moment. Emily, she said softly, when you're ready, I'm here. My breath hitched. Not pressure, not expectation, just an open door, the kind my father closed, the kind my grandfather left for me. And in that quiet moment, I realized something. Love doesn't have to be dramatic to be real. It doesn't need grand gestures or intense declarations. Sometimes, love is just someone who stays when the world leaves. I reached for her hand. I think I might be getting ready, I whispered. She smiled, tender and hopeful. And somehow, I felt a new chapter begin, closing the past for good. 1 month later, I received a call from a lawyer. My father had filed for bankruptcy. He had lost everything. But here's the truth. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel revenge. I felt distance, like I was finally watching a story that no longer belonged to me. I didn't go to see him. I didn't offer money. I didn't offer spite. I simply chose myself. Because forgiveness isn't letting someone back into your life. Forgiveness is choosing not to let their choices define yours anymore. And walking away finally felt like freedom, where I am now. A year after my father shut that door in my face, I walked into my office on my own 2 feet. My team clapped. Megan cried. I laughed through the tears. And on the wall behind my desk hangs a framed quote from my grandfather. Strength isn't something you're born with. It's something you build when you have no choice. He was right, because I didn't just rebuild my life, I rebuilt me.